Hello, everyone. I'm Kirsten Saylor. I'm St. Paul Public Schools garden coordinator. And today I'm excited to share a conversation with you with Phyllis Root, yay, who has written the great book called Anywhere Farm. And we're going to find out what it was like to write the book and just thoughts around writing in general. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Phyllis Root, and let's get started. Say hi, everybody. All right. So
I'm really pleased to be here. I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are super excited to have you. Super. All right. So my first question is, how long have you been a writer, and how did you get started?
I have been writing since like 5th grade.
Nice.
But I never knew how you went about becoming a writer, So all the way through school, there were no classes on writing. So I would try to write things and then, it wouldn't work. And I really think it's so wonderful how many schools have classes about writing, that show kids, you can do this. It's not a mystery. It's not a big secret. There are just, you learn it like you learn anything else, and you practice like you practice anything else. Anyway, I was probably 30 years old when I finally discovered a class I could take and on writing for children. And the teacher said, writing, you need to learn the tools. Then when you need to learn the tools, you need to write from your heart. You need to write about what you care about. So that was a long time ago. And I've been writing ever since. And I've been lucky enough to publish some books.
Well, and we are lucky that you'd have too. Thank you. Another question we have is, where did the idea for Anywhere Farm come from? Like, how did you come up with this idea and the theme for Anywhere Farm?
I got the idea from a writer friend of mine who had done a book, Will Allen and the Growing Table.
Oh,
and I saw the book when it was not yet published. She was still working on it. We trade manuscripts back and forth, and we say, what do you think? Do you have any ideas? And she had an idea for having the readers of the book make sprouts. And she eventually didn't put that in the book, but she had a little section on it called the Anywhere Garden or Anywhere Farm. I can't remember anymore. And I said, this is a book. You should write this book. And she said, I'm not going to write that book. I'm writing this book. But if you want to write that book, you can. So I just love that idea. It was so generous. It was such a gift. I love that idea of an Anywhere Farm. It's more of a garden than a farm. But I just almost my whole life, wherever I've been, there's been some kind of place you could turn into a little garden, a backyard or like a window box, even things like that. And so I decided I would try to write it.
Cool. Now, so when you got the idea, was it easy to do, or like, was it hard? How long did it take? Like, once you got the idea, was it easy enough to just start doing the words?
Well, I think because it had such a structure, not every book has the rhythm and the rhyme that I decided I wanted to play with in this book. So I think that made it take a long time trying to get that right, to get the rhythm right, to get the rhyme right. And the nice thing about that is you can do a lot of that kind of work even if you're not sitting down at a computer, a desk or something. You can kind of play around with it in your head. So it took a while. Yeah, it took a while. I think I worked on it off and on. And then I go to a writing retreat in the summer. I've done this for years with my writer friends, some of my writer friends. And we go up to an island in Rainy Lake up by the Canadian border.
Nice.
And I had like this whole week. And so that's the week when I was finally able to make everything work in the story.
So it sounds like you kind of mull it over and you're kind of tossing ideas around in your head for a while, but then to kind of move from that space to getting it down on paper, sometimes you need like a timeout or space where you
Yeah.
in your own thoughts?
My own kind of writing, the way I write, it's messy.
Ah,
I have it, if I get an idea, and an idea is like not just an idea that excites me, is the kind of idea that, it's like, oh my gosh, like the Anywhere Farm. I could do something with this. I could try something with this. And then it's just like, and I could try this and it doesn't work. And then I could try this and it doesn't work. And I could try something else. So it's not a nice straight line. It's kind of a wander, wander, wander. And then eventually, sometimes it becomes a book. A lot of times I finish writing it and nobody wants to make it into a book. And that's part of it too. I still had the fun and the thrill of writing it and the satisfaction.
oh, that's a whole other interview. What happened? to those books, though?
Well, it's like you want other people to read your book. You want your book to go out in the world, but a lot of them don't. And you just, you learn from it. And you just sort of say, well, thank you for, letting me write you. And then you go on to something else.
Sounds like those are the things. There is some feedback looping going on right now. And maybe it stopped. So let's see how we keep going. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Super. Super. So one of the questions, were you involved with the drawing or the illustrations of the book? And how, does that play at all into how you develop a book? How do you know where to put the words or not do the words?
A couple of things about that. I don't do the illustrations. Most of the time I have nothing to say about the illustrations at all. And that's okay, because then it's like a surprise. And then also the artist, brings their own way of seeing the story. Every time you write a story and you put the words down, and then you kind of have to let go of some of the ownership of it, because the artist might see it differently than I would see it. And that's okay. They bring their own ideas, and it's two different stories, that become one story. It's the pictures and the words, and they're the same story, but they're not the same story. Does that make sense? And so I think about, at some point after I've written a draft, I think about, well, is there enough here for a picture book? And sometimes I make my own little dummy, and so something like this is for a book that I'm working on with the friend who gave me the idea for the Anywhere Farm. She and I have written this book together, and then I take it and I say, well, let's see, I'm going to put some pieces of paper together. Is there enough here to fill up the pages of a picture book? Because picture books are usually 32 pages long. And then I think about, well, what would be a good place to turn the page? And that may not be where the artist says it's a good place to turn the page, but it helps me think about it, because there's such a unique thing, picture books. They have words, they have pictures, they have someone reading them. If it's a young audience, they have someone listening to them. You've got the book itself, and the book has these page turns, and you want people to think about, oh, I want to turn the page. I want to see what happens next. So you sort of try to build that in. And it's just fun. It's just fun, again, to play around with my hands and some tape and some scissors and things like that. And the one time that I have one other dummy I wanted to show you. This is when I was really, really stuck on a book. And it was a while ago. I was doing a lot of pop-ups with my kids and with my kids' classes in elementary school. And so I started playing around with my story idea to make a pop-up. And what happened was the whole story changed. It was another way of thinking. It was like thinking with my hands. So there's little knock-knock jokes, and there's doors that open. And the finished book, there's little mittens on a line. There's I had so much fun doing this. And then in the this is the cow jumping over the moon.
Hey.
And in the very end, there's a little pop-up house. And the finished book looks nothing like this. But it looks nothing at all like it. It's like this big book, and it's got things in it. It's got pages that
wow.
open up, doors that open, and it's got a little house that doesn't look anything like my house. It was just another way of writing the story, was to sort of get my hands involved, so it wasn't all in my head, kind of like thinking with your
No,
with other parts of yourself.
yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. But in terms of the art, it's always a surprise. It's like, oh my gosh, look what they did. I never would have pictured it that way, or I would have, but they still add so much detail and depth and richness. To, it's a
Yeah.
real collaboration.
Well, and then I think one time when we talked before, we also talked about how the reader becomes part of that whole story making as well. So here you have put together some words, you have another person putting to pictures, and then it's the reader. And then that's story.
Right.
Right. So I might read Anywhere's Farm the way I see it, but somebody else might see it differently, or see different details, or think differently about how other kinds of anywhere spaces and places or opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
Every reader's going to be different, and they're going to bring themselves to the book. And I've done what I can to put myself in the book, and the artist has done the same. It's a real collaboration. The reader's part of that collaboration.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a lot like learning, right? So there's a teacher, and then there's parents, and then there's community members, and of course the learner. They're
right.
a huge piece of all that learning that's going on. They choose, they figure out, they go with their interests and bring their own sensibility of the world with them. Yeah.
It's a little community for that
Yeah.
time and place. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. All right. I have a few more questions. Do you have some energy for this?
I do.
Okay.
Did you want to see my anywhere garden right now, my anywhere farm?
Oh, yeah.
I am busy. I mean,
Oh.
we're all at home right now because of the coronavirus, right? And so I decided I would start my garden. I got a little early start. This is my kale. It's not in a pail. It's kale in a box. Nothing rhymes with box that I can think of to plant in the garden.
That can be a challenge for one of our listeners today, right?
I could probably think of something very creative.
Nice. Well, that kind of gets me to the question is there something, well, no, I'm thinking I'm going to skip that question. We kind of got to it. The question was there something that wasn't included or wish you could have added now that you've had some time? Is there anything, we kind of talked about that a little bit. Is there anything you might want to say more on that? It's okay if you don't.
The book feels very complete to me the way it is, except that if I could, I would put a pack of seeds in each book so that everybody who gets a book can plant their own anywhere farm. And I hope people do. I hope people who read it go, oh, I have a balcony. I can put it out on the balcony, or I've got this pot here. I can just plant it in this old tin pot. You know, things grow. Things want to grow. You know, seeds are like little secrets. You put them in the ground, and then and then it's up to them.
Right. And sometimes they don't work. Like I've just planted a bunch of stuff. I'm so impressed with your kale. But some of the things I just planted, and I'm supposed to be the expert, and they didn't come up the way I had hoped.
I have a lot of seeds I planted that didn't come up too. It's okay.
So writing books, planting gardens, kind of the same thing. Right.
A big element of chance. And sometimes there's just sweet surprises. So
just do it. All right, cool. I have like a two-parter. I'm going to mesh them together and you can pull out what you like. It's really like, how did you get hooked on gardening? And what does gardening mean to you? I'll just mesh them, pick out what you want from that, if you would.
Uh, really, about as far back, there have been gardens in my life. When I was a kid, we had this big garden. My mom grew up on a farm, and we had a big garden, like probably bigger than the size of a city lot. And our neighbor would come over with his tractor and disc it up. And then, just so many things got planted in that garden. The first garden, it's not even a whole garden, but I remember the first sort of plants of my very own. I missed a school field trip in like second grade, I think, and because I was sick, and my dad brought me home a little. This is my memory, and memory sometimes is a little chancy, but what I do remember is it was a little, maybe 6-pack of Snapdragons.
Yeah.
And neat. So it was sort of a consolation that I didn't get to go on the field trip to the zoo. But those were my first like plants of my own. And now I try to still plant Snapdragons every year,
Oh,
just as a memory, a little memory in my garden.
I love that. How nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So any words of encouragement that you would give our young writers today? We can end on that note if you like. Or if there's anything else you'd like to share.
I like what you said about writing and gardening. You do it, and sometimes things develop and grow and you have wonderful tomatoes by the end of the summer, and some books, you work on them, and especially kids can illustrate their own books. I'm really envious of that. They can make their whole book themselves. But I would just say, do it, write your stories, tell your stories, plant some seeds, see what grows. I think both of those things are about hope,
Yeah. Yeah.
See, they're about hope. And I think stories are too. Like, I hope this story works. I mean, on that level, but it's a way we have of connecting with each other.
Yeah.
Through stories. Just like now, people are really hungry for connection.
Right.
But I think stories are always about connecting with another person. So I would just say, tell your own stories. Everybody has stories that no one else but them can tell. So I hope they do.
That's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to say goodbye to our viewers. Thank you for watching. And
yeah, plant your gardens. Write your stories.